What you're looking at here is a Galisteo, Alexful, and Props dragonblaze 6.1, also known as the raccoon box, and as you see in the upper right hand corner there. And what this is kind of a modified dragonblaze 6.1. There was a similar image that Galisteo made. This has a new skin on it, and so all custom artwork from Props, and has a ton of like hack games and homebrew games, and just a ton of systems all together. Now, remind you, this is for the Raspberry Pi 3B Plus, and it will not work on the Raspberry Pi 4. That being said, look at when I scroll like this, like it's a beautiful, beautiful image that actually runs really well. Now, let's go ahead and jump into it and see the individual games and what comes on this. But so far as graphically, it's actually a really beautiful image. I have to give it that. So on first boot, my Xbox 360 controller was already working, but if you have a different controller, you might have to go over, hit start on your controller, and then adjust the controller settings here. If you want to like pair a Bluetooth controller or add another controller. Sound settings, I just turned off my front end music, and the system sound was already at 70%. You can kind of mess with that if you want. You can also overclock this image, which is really cool. You go to advanced setting here, and you can easily go ahead and overclock. And if you have a good case, you know, it's not a problem at all to do that. Get a little bit better performance in Dreamcast, Nintendo 64, and some of the arcade selections. Now, as you see here, it's a nice little build, and you have your favorites. So Amstrad CPC, 357, Atari 2600, 644 games. And I guess this one doesn't have it, but a lot of them have folders within. Atari 5273, 7864, Cave Story. Now this is in Portuguese, BR for Brazil. So that's kind of a bummer if you are in your English speaking. You'd have to replace the whole ROM. Now Dreamcast games, 11 games. And Dreamcast actually ran pretty good on this front end. It's not going to run in super high res, but I don't think you're going to have a lot of lag, which is kind of nice. There are video snaps on this image as well if you wait a while, depending on the system. Some systems have them. So, like, for example, Dreamcast does not have it. But when you go to arcade, like Capcom has it. Yeah, see Street Fighter Third Strike. So there are some video snaps depending on the category. Now, this is a 64 gigabyte version, and they're probably going to come out with a few different versions of this image, Family Computer System 232. So depending on the version you have, I have the 64 gigabyte. It may or may not have video snaps or additional games. Game Boy. Now, your Game Boy and your Game Boy Advance, when you load these games, they're going to be slightly stretched to a bigger screen. As you'll see here when I launch Sonic Advance 3, it's not running the original resolution. It's kind of blown up to what is this, like a 4:3 aspect ratio. So you could change all that, though, really easily. I just want to throw that out there right now. If I hit start on my controller on the main menu over here, I can head over to advanced settings, then go to my emulator, advanced emulator settings, and then I go over to my Game Boy Advance, for example, and then game ratio is auto. I can easily go ahead and change the ratio to 3:2, for example, or 4:1, and depending on how you want your Game Boy Advance to look, it will look that way. But I think it was set at auto to start. So pretty cool. Easy to do a lot of this stuff. Okay, Game Boy Color, you got 547, Game & Watch 53. So this kind of has every older system on it, Intellivision 159, Lutro 9, Atari Lynx 76. So MAME, you have over almost 2,000 MAME games here, which is kind of ridiculous. And you can search by hitting start on your controller since there's so many games and go through all of them. And then as far as changing the cores, you could do that like I just showed you if the game isn't loading. But that's a lot of MAME games. Sega Master System 429, Mega Drive, so 1,300 games. And here's where the folders come in. You'll notice little hashtags here. So Japanese Mega Drive, you go into that folder there. Portuguese releases, you go there. And then hack games. There's a bunch of hack games as well. Angry Birds in Russia, for example, for the Sega Mega Drive. Let's go ahead and go back a little bit here. MSX Turbo 659, Nintendo 64, only 100. Right now I think it's just showing my favorites. Yeah, so if you hit select on your controller, it's just going to show you your favorites. So this is all of them here. And Nintendo 64 runs pretty good. on this particular build and front end. Neo Geo, you got 211. These weren't really working for me at first. I actually had to. There's hack games as well, 36 hacks. I had to turn off game smoothing for a couple of them to run through the emulator settings, but then a lot of them ran just fine. So in case that, so you might be wondering, wow, 2,000 Nintendo games? Well, that's because they have Dynavision on here, Portuguese releases, and almost 700 hacked games. Neo Geo Pocket Color 9, Neo Geo Pocket or Pocket 9, Neo Geo Pocket Color 82, Odyssey 116, PC Engine 290. So you see, this is a ton of games for a 64 gigabyte micro SD card. Doom, you got a few Doom games, Doom 2, Plutonium, TNT. PSP, I couldn't get these to run correctly. The three here, I'll have to play with that a little bit more. But these PSP mini games run no problem. PlayStation games, 32. You don't, if you just see those, you want to hit select to undo your show only favorites. And you can easily add more favorites, so you can see it's going to be your square button on your corresponding controller. Satellaview 63, ScumVM. Now there's another bummer of this image is that a lot of these are going to be in Portuguese, so you might just want to, there's only 10, so that's not too bad. You're not really wasting a ton of space with those. Sega 32X, 37, Sega CD, you got 16. In case you're wondering what 16 you have, here you go. Chuck Rock 2, SG-1000, you got 68. Super Nintendo, another one that's going to have, you hit select again, you have your Super Famicom in here, and then your hack games, and your Portuguese releases, and then all your traditional titles. Sufami Turbo, Super Graphics, Vectrex, Virtual Boy, Wonder Swan Color, just a ton of games there, and then we're back on the home screen. Looks like this is stretched a little bit, but boom. Come at me, bro. Give me those bananas. Ouch. Come on, throw a grenade at this dude. Oh man. So what do I think about this image? I mean, honestly, the imagery is great. The theme itself is just smooth as butter. You know, everything from like a quick little launch skin to, you know, it just loads up really quickly, really nice. I think some people aren't going to necessarily like that a lot of these games are going to come pre-stretched out. I think a lot of people like to run these in like a 4:3 or, you know, not the entire screen. But some people like to run stretched, and some games don't look actually too bad stretched. but that's going to be on a one-on-one basis. A lot of the arcade games actually are correctly sized, so which is a lot of the games on here. You know, it has over like what I'm saying between Neo Geo, MAME, and Final Burn Alpha. It's got, you know, like 3K games on here, so those will run really well, and they're not running the stretch resolution necessarily. So for a 64 gigabyte image for the Raspberry Pi 3B Plus, remember that, you know, Raspberry Pi 4, it's a different story. I wouldn't be giving this image a very good review, but the fact that this is for a Raspberry Pi 3B Plus, it's a great image that just runs really smooth on a slightly older board. So for those reasons, it's really cool. And then I have to give a shout out on the artwork here. Now, it's not super crisp, I wouldn't say that necessarily, but I think that's part of the reason why it's running maybe a little lower res. These files are optimized because these are just popping up super fast. Like there's 0 delay here, which makes for a really nice experience. Like I said, if I hold this down, look at that. Like that's really responsive for a Raspberry Pi 3 Plus. So all in all, I'll give this one a B plus, A minus. There's, like I said, there's some, you know, things that I think people are going to want to customize and change, and you know, there's not full collections here, but a lot of those decisions have to be made on such a small SD card. I think if you're playing with 128, you can literally just throw everything on there and not really worry about it. But as I mentioned, like there's some video snaps, but then some not video snaps. There's some games that, you know, people are going to like, some not. And then, you know, stretching the images versus, you know, setting each core up and each thing properly. I don't know if it's quite gone through that meticulously, but it's 90% here. And then it being Portuguese as well, I have to knock it down just a little bit, just because, you know, somebody who's, you know, the same reason why Pandora's Box or some other pre-built image that's made in China isn't quite the same as somebody programming it here in the US or UK. You know, it is slightly different. You know, it's not going to be perfect. But with that said, if you can kind of, you know, it is free, right? So if you can kind of get behind, you know, all the hard work and everything, I think a lot of you are still going to enjoy it. So I liked it. I thought it was cool. And I just can't emphasize enough how streamlined it feels. That's really cool. So that's what I think. Let me know what you all think. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll catch you on the next one.